What up, y'all? It's Joe Budden, here to talk about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to win real money while watching football. You can get up to 100 times your money.
Prize Picks will give you $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Just download the Prize Picks app and use code SPOTIFY. That's code SPOTIFY on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play a $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. So much of your personal info is out of your control, like your insurance provider that has your social security number and your favorite retailer that has your payment details. If they get breached, your information, your identity, is vulnerable. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points a second for threats. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
From Wall Street to the White House, this is the Larry Kudlow Show.
There's going to be a big change in foreign policy for the United States under President Donald Trump. You can be sure of that. To talk about some of it, my dear friend, Ambassador Robert O'Brien, former National Security Advisor in Mr. Trump's first term. He's now the chairman of American Global Strategies. Robert, by the way, I thought of you, and always in a good way, but the Iranian so-called contract murderer to get Trump, which was, I guess, foiled. The news came out, and I know they've been after you for years. They've been after Pompeo and a few others. I'm insanely jealous, but the fact is, what do you make of this? Why did they wait until after the election to tell us about this?
Well, that's first of all, great to be with you, and I'm sure you've been smiling since Tuesday like I have.
Yes.
The tagline is America's back, and our allies are reassured, our adversaries are starting to run scared. Going to the issue of Iran, I think it's going to be the first issue on the president's plate. The fact that the DOJ has known about the Iranian plots for months and it's held off until after the election, I think was very unfortunate, to say the least. And maybe we'll find out why that happened when President Trump returns to office. But I'm telling you, who should be really worried aren't the bureaucrats of the DOJ who maybe play politics with this. It's the Iranians themselves. I mean, they decided to kill the President of the United States. They took active measures to do it. They were connected in the Biden documents, and the Biden DOJ documents are connected to the IRGC, the Republican Guard, and the Revolutionary Guard Corps. And so the regime's fingerprints are on these plans to kill the president and kill senior advisors. And they better be very nervous, come January 20th.
So it's time to clamp down on Iran, stop the appeasement, go back to the total sanctions that were imposed on them. It seems to me, I'll get your take on this, the oil sanctions, the commercial sanctions, selling oil, producing oil. I mean, it's time to re-bankrupt Iran like we did in the first term.
Absolutely, and you were a big part of that with your leadership on the economic front, with the Iran, more so than the military front. You shut those guys down. I think they had $4 billion in, correct me if I'm wrong, $4 billion in foreign currency reserves, practically bankrupt when they left, and now they're sitting on $100 billion in foreign currency reserves. Well, what was shocking, Larry, from the unsealed indictment is that one of the assassins went back to the Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, and said, this is going to cost us a lot of money. And the IRGC official told him, don't worry, we've got plenty of money. And I thought, where did the money come from? It came from the $6 billion in hostage ransoms that we paid. It came in the $100 billion in sanctions relief that we gave Iran, that we got nothing in return for. So when he said we've got plenty of money to kill President Trump, that money came because the Biden administration was appeasing them and giving it, basically allowing them access to that money. And that's a shame.
So if that's cut off, really, all of that's cut off, and then isn't it time to just give a green light, let Israel be Israel, let the IDF be the IDF, and put an end to the Hamas and the Hezbollah? I mean, it seems like it's all a package deal with Iran at the center of it, and then they got all this money to finance their terrorist proxies. I mean, we should be near the end if we just let them finish it.
Absolutely. And Bibi Netanyahu has done a great favor to the West, to America in taking out these terrorists. Keep in mind, Larry, the Hezbollah, the Party of God terrorists in Lebanon, all these senior leaders that were taken out got their start in 1982 and 1983, blowing up our embassy, blowing up our Marine barracks, and kidnapping and killing CIA Station Chief Buckley. And so these guys, Israel finally brought justice to people who killed many, many hundreds of Americans. You know, it took 40 years, but justice was brought. But it wasn't brought by us. It was brought by Israel. But nevertheless, justice was delivered. It's time to wipe out Hezbollah. It's time to wipe out Hamas. And it's time to tell the Iranians if they continue to fund terrorism, they're next. And showing the Israelis showed the precision with which these people can be taken out. They saw it with Baghdadi, where we went 1,500 miles behind enemy lines to take out the leader of ISIS. They saw it with other operations, including some of their own generals. So the Iranian leadership ought to be very, very concerned that their reign of terror in the Middle East is coming to an end, and that they're going to be personally held accountable if they don't stop it.
What do you make? I mean, headline today, Robert O'Brien, this anti-Semitism against the Israeli soccer fans in Amsterdam. It's just one of these terrible stories, it just seems to me. I don't know how you solve that stuff, but it's an awful story. And I don't know why has Biden said anything about this? I mean, a little moral suasion wouldn't be a bad idea here to help the Israelis out, to help the Jewish people out.
So this is the oldest form of bigotry, anti-Semitism, and it's a terrible thing. It's the reason the state of Israel was created, to give a homeland to Jews who couldn't be safe, as we saw in Europe with the Holocaust. And even here, when people say, why do we have in Israel? If you went to Columbia University like I did and talked to the Jewish students at the height of the pro-Hamas, they weren't pro-Palestinian rallies, they were pro-Hamas, pro-terrorism rallies and protests on these campuses where Jews were being pushed up against the wall. They couldn't wear a yarmulke on the street. They couldn't wear a Star of David around their neck. And this was happening in New York City, United States of America. It's a terrible form of bigotry. We've got to put a stop to it. But this is what happens in Europe with the untrammeled immigration of military-aged males coming from radical regimes in the Middle East. These aren't refugee families coming in that are seeking political asylum. These are massive numbers of military-aged males who flooded over the borders in Europe. Save Hungary. They've created safe zones for their Islamic jihadism in many countries in Europe. And look, we don't have a dissimilar problem here in America. We don't even know who's here because 8 million people have come in over the last 4 years, including military-aged male Chinese that do not look like pro-democracy protesters from Hong Kong. They look like fit military guys with good dental work and short haircuts. And we've got terrorists from the watch list that have come over. We've got people coming from every stand, every Middle Eastern country, Syria, Yemen, Lebanon, terrorist hotbeds. So it's a very dangerous situation that we're facing, not just in Europe, but here. Both anti-Semitism, which is just rank bigotry, but also terrorist threats to Americans and Jews.
Last few moments, Robert O'Brien. President Trump is on the phone with President Zelensky of Ukraine. I guess that phone call was shared with Elon Musk. It's well known that President Trump would like to make a peace deal. Any thoughts on that process?
Well, we should get a peace deal as soon as we can, because the Ukrainians are it's a small country compared to Russia. They're bleeding men. They're losing an entire generation of their manhood. It's a terrible thing that's happened. Putin was a thug and a vicious aggressor on this thing. But I want to remind people, when we were talking about Donald Trump, the reason that Putin was not successful in taking Kiev, the capital of Ukraine, in the first couple of days of the invasion, when it was very dangerous for Ukraine, is because President Trump had provided the Ukrainians with 600 highly sophisticated Javelin anti-tank missiles. But he also provided them the training to use those missiles to stop the three-pronged armored axis attack that the Russians had launched on Kiev. And then shortly thereafter, Elon Musk, who was also on that call with Zelensky, gave him the Starlink system so they could communicate. The Russians had taken out all of the Ukrainian communication ability. Elon got him the Starlink, and so the two people that really saved Ukraine, Elon Musk and Donald Trump, were on the phone with him the other day. And the news media won't cover that angle of the story, but it's an important thing that people need to understand.
Well, I think that right. I think some kind of fair deal. I'm not smart enough to know. You probably are smart enough to know. I'm not going to ask you to divulge any security secrets on this, but the sooner the better. And I think your point is right. I mean, Russia may have picked up a few kilometers in the Ukraine, but they didn't get what they wanted. It cost them an arm and a leg, treasure, and but some of this too. If you go back, if the world oil price was closer to 40 than 100, Robert O'Brien, it would be a lot harder for Russia and, for that matter, Iran, but Russia too. If you could get it closer to 40 than $100.
Drill, baby, drill. And you've been talking about this, Larry, when you were an economic advisor to the president and the last 4 years. If we had stopped Nord Stream 2, if we'd opened the Keystone Pipeline, which only has about 25 miles left to go, and gotten that 900,000 barrels a day from Canada, and drilled where we've got massive proven reserves, you're 100% right. Oil would be down at $30 or $40 a barrel, enough for our drillers to make money and make a profit. But it would eliminate the $40 a barrel excess. The $80 a barrel, the Iranians and Russians have all kinds of money to build ballistic missiles and that sort of thing. At the $40 a barrel, they don't. And so American energy policy is a national security policy. And I remember you telling the president time and again when we were in the Oval Office, economic security, Mr. President, is national security.
Yeah. And
you're 100% right. And this is a big energy policy is a big part of it. And if we unleash the American oil industry here with our proven reserves and the blessings that God has given this country in oil and gas, and clean oil and gas too, much cleaner than Russia or China or Iran, that's going to really put a crimp in these dictators' pockets, and it's going to help bring peace to the world.
And for some incredible reason, Biden stopped LNG export and LNG export facilities. The United States should be the biggest exporter of LNG to the rest of the world, number one, but especially to Europe, so they don't rely on Putin and Russia. I mean, you talk about dumb policies. I will never understand that. I think that's all going to change right now, or as soon as possible, or for all we know, it'll change during the transition. Anyway, I got to jump. Ambassador Robert O'Brien, just chock full of wisdom. Thank you, Robert. We appreciate it very much, folks. I'm Kudlow. We will take a quick break, and then we're going to talk about deporting criminals, remain in Mexico, building a wall, closing the border with Chad Wolf, former Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. I'm Kudlow. Be right back.
Larry Kudlow.
Eden Memorial Chapels understands Jewish funerals can take many forms. Some are Orthodox, while others are more conservative or of a Reformed nature. There's no one better. With services close to all New York and New Jersey cemeteries, Eden Memorial Chapels offer fair and balanced pricing and can provide easy transfer of you and your loved ones to Israel. While you're grieving, they're here to take care of all the details so that you deal with less bureaucracy and have more peace of mind. Go to EdenMemorial.com. That's EdenMemorial.com.